Good morning, Internet, from Split, Croatia, where this year's European edition of Ultra Music Festival is happening this weekend. Now, normally what I would do is I would post some Instagram stories and be like, hey, look everyone, I'm at Ultra. Except this year is a little different. This year is a lot different. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to talk to all of you aspiring event shooters about how you can do these things. Whether you're still trying to land that first gig, or if you have one coming up and you're trying to not fuck it up, stay tuned and we will talk about all of it in excruciating detail. But first, there is one thing we must do: the sick montage. Now, Ultra has long been on my bucket list of things to shoot because it was a first major festival that I went to. And even though I've been to bigger and better ones now, it will always hold a bit of a special place in my heart. And now that the festival is over and I have time to sit down and talk about it, let's talk about it. Now, I've been shooting various music events for about 3 years now. I've shot most recently the Ultra Music Festival. I've done a lot of work at ADE, the Amsterdam Dance event. I've done Rave Culture. I've done Andrew Rayel's Find Your Harmony show. I've done small venues, I've done big venues, I've done enough things to where I hopefully know what I'm talking about. And yes, my experience has primarily been with dance music events, but the core principles that I'm going to explain will still work whether you're shooting DEF CON 1, a Metallica show, or a Lindsey Sterling concert, because the fundamentals of a stage performance don't really change that much genre to genre. Now, there's a couple of things that go into shooting a music event, and they're going to be different based on who exactly you're shooting for. You could be shooting for the event, for the venue, or for the artist. Now, based on that, there's going to be slightly different deliverables and things you would do, but the overall sort of rules of the game don't really change, and that's what I want to talk about. Starting with gear. Now, as we all know, gear doesn't matter. Gear is the only thing that matters. Gear matters quite a bit because it influences the types of results you're able to get. And the first thing we should probably discuss is going to be the camera. Now, if you have access to a really cool camera, like say a Red Komodo, then you need to take that Red Komodo and leave it at home because it's not really gonna do well for you. You want a camera that, one, starts up really quickly. You want to be able to flip that switch and be ready to go at a moment's notice. You can't be waiting for the camera to boot up. You also need something that's really good in low light and very, very portable. So despite my issues with Sony in the past, I think A7S III and FX3, which is the exact same camera but in a more expensive body, are probably going to be the perfect choices. The low light performance matters especially for shooting events because a lot of them take place either at night or in dark environments, which is why you will see a lot of like proper venue productions shooting on Sony. Now, when it comes to actually rigging this camera, there's a lot of options here and there's a lot of wrong directions to take. The setup that I would personally recommend is something like this. You want to get your camera, put it in a cage, give it a handle, give it a monitor. And for the love of God, do not run the monitor from a V-mount battery. The V-mount battery isn't gonna do much for you because the runtime of most events is covered by you having 2 camera batteries and 2 monitor batteries. Like, it's gonna last you the entire night, and then you go back to your hotel, you plug it in for the night. Because if you have a V-mount battery, you have a bunch of cables you have to manage. You're limited with your screen rotation, which you might want to be using for photography if you're also doing photos and not just shooting video. V-mount battery is just extremely unnecessary for a situation where you need to be fast moving. The other thing is gimbals. Now, gimbal is an interesting one because if you're only doing video, I would suggest you bring one, especially if you have one of those new lightweight ones that DJI makes, like the minis, whatever they're called. Those ones are nice, they're quick, they're tiny, they're easy to transport, they mostly get out of your way, and those are nice. But if you're also doing photography at the event, then gimbal is a massive, massive no-no because you cannot take photos with the gimbal. You can, it's gonna be terrible, it's gonna be
It's going to be a bad experience to try to rotate the gimbal and hold the camera in a way that makes sense. You're not going to be able to see shit. You can't really look through the viewfinder, and it's just not good. Taking photos with a gimbal attached is not great. And if you listen to my earlier advice and you went with the Sony or maybe one of the newer Lumix cameras, then you either have God tier IBIS stabilization already, or in case of the Sony, you have gyro data that you can use to stabilize in post, which is great because it's the same thing that GoPro does. It's the same thing that we do for FPV footage, where you take your video, there's a gyroscope track embedded in the video, and then you can run it through software that stabilizes every bit of that movement, and then it turns it into buttery smooth motion, which is something that IBIS is just incapable of doing, because the gyro stabilization is able to literally see into the future and know what the camera will be doing 3 seconds from now. And that's why it works so well. Now, when it comes to the lens that you want to bring, there is only one lens that matters, and that is a 24 to 70 2.8. Whichever brand you prefer is up to you. I'm using the Sigma, but that is the only lens that you want to be shooting events with. If anybody else tells you to bring a different lens, or God forbid, use a prime, never listen to that person again, because the time it takes to switch lenses mid-performance is going to cost you the most valuable footage that you're not going to get because you were switching the lens. So to recap, for the camera setup, get a newer Lumix or one of the popular Sonys, slap a monitor on it so you're able to see things, because that tiny display is going to be useless in the context of an event venue. Put that in your bag and head to the venue. Right? Wrong. First thing you want to do, whether the event is happening in your city or if you're traveling to it, is you want to be there a day early and you want to get out into the town. You want to get some footage of the city. You want to get some footage of maybe event marketing if they have it. For example, if you go to Amsterdam, if you go to ADE, there's going to be ADE branding all over town. All of Amsterdam is taken over by ADE, so there's going to be marketing everywhere. And it's going to be really great for the establishing shots in the video that you're going to be making. And once you're done getting all of your city footage, you want to go back to your hotel. You want to make sure everything is charged. And then about an hour before the event begins, or an hour before your artist gets on stage, you should head to the venue. And when you're there, you should use that hour to study the venue as much as possible. You want to know where the stage is. You want to know what the distance is between the stage and the crowd. If there is no photo pit, you want to know the ways to navigate across the stage. You want to be able to get in and out of the crowd. You want to know where things are at the venue, because you are going to have to go and check those things out. Typically with a stage setup, there's going to be a left side stage access, right side stage access, there's going to be a photo pit, there's going to be a fence where the crowd is, and sometimes there's walkways on either side of the crowd. You want to know where all of those locations are before you actually start shooting, because the problem with music events is kind of a similar problem as with weddings, where important things will happen. You don't necessarily know when they're going to happen, and they will only happen once. So if you miss it, that's on you. To put it simply, if an artist decides they want to do a bit of crowd surfing and you happen to be climbing a fence at the back of the venue, you fucked up. You don't want that to happen. You want to be aware of where things are, of how to quickly navigate the venue. You want to be able to react to things within 3 seconds. Otherwise, you will miss important moments. The other thing you should be aware of is security at every event is going to be a bunch of idiots who don't know what they're doing. They probably aren't idiots and they probably do know what they're doing, but they don't have sufficient knowledge of who has what access and who's there with whom and who can do what things. So if you have access to a photo pit, for example, never assume that that access will remain. In fact, you should be operating with an explicit assumption that by the time when you most importantly have to be in the photo pit, you will not be allowed into the photo pit. If you operate from that assumption, things are going to be a lot easier when event actually works as it's supposed to. Because if you've ever been to a concert or to a festival, you know how disorganized things are when you're attending. Well, let me tell you, it is exactly the same level of disorganized on the back end for the artists, for the media crew, for everyone. So normally when you show up to an event, you will be given an artist wristband or a media pass or some form of accredited access. And that is what usually is going to get you to certain areas. But some events, they separate access to certain stages, they separate access to some categories of people, and even though you should be allowed to access an area sometimes, until you have someone's boss come down and let the people at that spot know that, you will not be allowed in. It's just something you're going to have to deal with. There isn't really a way around it, but you need to be smart enough and prepared enough to deal with that when it happens. And now the big moment, right? The headliner of the event or the artist that you're there to shoot is about to come up on stage. The crowd is losing their mind. There's smoke machines and pyro going off everywhere. What do you do? Well, it's kind of twofold, right? On one hand, music events and performances are all about the vibes in the moment, and when something cool happens, you manage to capture that, that's great. But there's also a couple of things that are sort of must get when things are happening. So for example, when the artist gets on the stage for the first time, you're gonna wanna get a shot of that. If the stage is big and it allows for that, you wanna get it from the front. Otherwise, it's normal to get it from the back with them walking up and greeting the crowd and that sort of thing. But there's generally just a couple of angles and focal lengths and types of shots that you definitely want to get, that every artist or every venue or every event is going to expect. And I'm going to demonstrate them using the advanced 3D simulation known as the Cyberpunk 2077 photo mode. Okay, so this is the setup we're working with, right? This is a nightclub, but this applies to everything else. It's just instead of the decks, you're going to have a different stage arrangement. And we're going to start with probably the most important shot, which is going to be something like this. You want to be behind the artist into the venue. You want to make sure the crowd is not a complete blur, which is not really going to be an issue with a real camera. And you want to get something along these lines. You want the artist facing the crowd. You want to show the venue that they're performing at. You might want to step back a little bit and go a bit longer for this one as well. This is going to make the crowd a bit bigger. Let me hide the UI real quick. So you want to start off somewhere along these lines, and then while you're here, you want to get some of these side angles showing the rest of the venue. Let's check out the right side. And this works pretty good as well, but this is a good showcase of you have to be mindful of where the artist is facing. So for this one, I would probably go like lean over here to the front. Maybe zoom in a bit more. Sort of like this. Right, while you're here, you want to go longer. You want to get some of these like low angle portraits, which always looks really cool. Generally, when you're shooting the artist, you kind of want to do low angles as much as possible. It makes them look really appealing in the sort of like larger than life type of thing. And also while you're behind and while you're long, you want to get some shots into the special effects, into the lasers, into the pyro, into the smoke. So something that looks kind of like this. And this is a pretty cool one, right? The venues will probably have a lot of smoke machines, which make everything a lot better because smoke just makes everything better. It's one of the reasons I love venues so much. They do a lot of the work for you. But once you're done with these portraits, you might want to zoom out a little bit. You want to go into the photo pit. You want to get some of the low wides from the photo pit. And if you're able to, you want to go a little bit higher to get the visuals behind the artist, because some venues and some events will have a screen with visuals going on, or there's going to be some other type of performance happening. You want to get a wide angle of that. You want to get a bit of a closer, longer angle on that. And then at this point, you probably want to step back into the crowd, and you want to get some of those long shots with the crowd. So something along these lines. You can use the crowd to frame the artist, and it tends to look pretty cool most of the time. So kind of like this, it captures the movement in the crowd. You can get the excitement that the people are feeling as well as show the artist, right? And while you're here, while you're in the photo pit or somewhere near the photo pit, get some crowd shots as well. You want to get people being excited, which None of these guys are, apparently, but do get some crowd shots from the photo pit. And then you want to go back, all the way back into the venue. You want to get into the crowd. You want to blend with the crowd as much as you can. And you want to go very long. You want to get all the way to 70, and you want to get the shot across the venue, kind of like this. And then at some point, something interesting is going to happen. Like in case of a club performance, DJs love to jump up on that table, or there's going to be a sick guitar solo, or something that you're going to want to get an interesting angle of. And the interesting angle is always going to be a lower angle with the middle of your focal range, so about 50 millimeters more or less. This is going to be your shot. Ideally, if the venue allows it, you want to get it from the front, so you might want to go wide. If the venue doesn't really allow you to do that, then you're gonna wanna be somewhere around here, probably higher, so you can get a little bit of the crowd in there as well. But generally, this is where you're gonna wanna spend most of your time. It's up on the stage around the artist. You wanna get their emotions, you wanna get the action of whatever they're doing into the shot, and you're gonna wanna be alternated between your wide angle and your telephoto, because a shot like this is something every artist would love to post on their profile, but a shot like this is more along the lines of what the venue is gonna want. So depending on who exactly you're shooting for, this is gonna be the difference in the approach you should be taking. But this is more or less the gist of what the general expectations are going to be from the types of photos and the types of videos that you're going to be getting. And you did it. Good job. You shot the event. You have all of the footage. You have all of the photos. The easy part is out of the way, and now it's time for everybody's favorite, editing. When it comes to photos, you really just want to make sure the colors pop. Don't use any of your fancy presets. Just add the contrast, especially if it's not a daytime event. Like if it's a daytime event, you maybe have some latitude, but you still have to follow the creative style of that event or that artist. So if you're shooting for the event, they likely have a color scheme that they would like you to use. If you're shooting for an artist, they likely have their own profile style that you would want to match. Remember, when you're doing these things, it's not about how cool and creative and cinematic you are. Nobody cares about you. I'm sorry to tell you that, James, but it's just the harsh reality is that nobody cares about you when you're shooting someone else's performance. It's all about them, it's about their presentation, their style, and them. But also, if it's a nighttime event, you generally just can't do much because they're probably going to be using those terrible, cheap purple LEDs, which just ruin everything. They demolish skin tones. They make sure that you can't get rid of haze. And it's not even worth trying. Just make sure it's nice and contrasty and it pops, and hand the photos out to them, and they're going to love it and they're going to thank you for it. Now, when it comes to video, things get a little more interesting. When it comes to color grading, it's mostly the same rules. Try to not touch the purples too much, try to lower them a little bit, desaturate them. Maybe that'll bring some details back from everything else. But overall, you don't want to use any crazy LUTs. You just want a nice, crispy Rec 709 footage, unless it's a daytime event, in which case you have latitude, and if you're shooting for DEF CON 1, then you use the DEF CON 1 LUT. But what about the actual editing, Max? How do I cut the footage? That heavily depends, because the most important thing about editing a video for a music event is the type of music that you're going to be using, which a lot of the times isn't really going to be up to you. If you're shooting for an event, they might ask for a specific track because, say, the main headliner just came out with a big one, and that's the one that they want to use for promotion. Or if you're shooting for an artist, they might have a release coming up that they want to promote before it drops. In which case, you just kind of have to do your best with what you got. But sometimes there will be moments where you actually get to choose what music to use. It's probably still going to be limited to a selection of artists or something along those lines, but if you do have a choice, it can significantly elevate what you end up doing. Now, when it comes to editing a music event video and choosing music to do it to, there are two factors that are the most important that you're not really going to hear anybody else talk about, because I kind of made it up and it's not scientific at all, but I'm going to try to explain it and hopefully it makes sense to you, because it makes perfect sense to me, but it also sounds kind of stupid. All right, so the two concepts that I'm talking about are the slap and the flow. Now, the slap factor of a song determines how the song is, and the flow factor of a song determines how the song is. Now, for dancing, the slap factor is pretty much the only one that matters. For listening, the flow is pretty much the only one that matters. When it comes to editing a video, the flow matters quite a bit more, but without a healthy dose of slap, the video won't really hit. And now you're thinking, Max, what in the ever-loving fuck are you talking about? All right, let me demonstrate. I'm gonna play a couple of songs from a couple of different genres. One of them is going to mainly slap, and the other one is going to mainly flow. And hopefully, with enough samples, it's gonna make sense to you. Now, I'm gonna start with progressive house, because regardless of the kind of music you listen to, you will have been forced to listen to some progressive house at some point on a radio, in an Uber, or whatever. Like, there isn't a person on the planet who hasn't heard a progressive house song. So I'm gonna play you some songs, then I'm gonna put those songs over the same piece of edited footage, and then hopefully it's all gonna make sense. Okay, cool, let's go. Song number 1. All right, it's pretty good, it's a very high energy, dancey song. However, if I put it in a video, it doesn't really work that well. Now contrast it with a song like this. Now if you put this one in the video, you can feel the difference. And this is sort of the balancing act that you have to do when choosing your music, is you have to find that perfect slap and flow balance, and every now and then you will hit the perfect zen of a song that has the exact right amount of slap and it flows like a fucking river and it's just so beautiful, and I can only play like 3 seconds of it because copyright, but here it is. This is the song. It's Anchor by Tritonal. It's fantastic. As far as progressive house songs go, that's the one to edit the video to. But let's check out a few other genres within dance music and within other genres so that I can hopefully illustrate the slap versus flow dynamic a little bit better. So I'm gonna play a song that slaps, I'm gonna play a song that flows, and hopefully you get it.
man, take it easy. What you gonna do when I'm right in your face? Put you right in your place. Should've made a mistake. Now the beast is awake. Let's go, don't wait. I need all mine, no tax breaks.
I don't know. I really don't know how to explain it. It makes perfect sense to me. It's very clear in my head, but every time I try sort of putting it into words, I end up sounding a little bit nonsensical. So that's why the examples, that's why hopefully it conveys what I'm trying to say here. But the real solution to the music selection problem is to just listen to a shit ton of music. Listen to a lot of music from the genres you don't listen to. Listen to rock, listen to heavy metal, listen to hardstyle, listen to the Expedition 33 soundtrack, listen to Lindsey Sterling, listen to Imagine Dragons. Actually, don't listen to Imagine Dragons. Listen to as much stuff as you can, especially if it's something that you normally wouldn't listen to. And if you're one of those people that's like, oh, I already do that, Max. I listen to everything. I don't have a preference for a genre. I'm a fan of all music. Are you now, James? Are you a fan of all music? Then how about some up-tempo? People edit videos to that, by the way, and it slaps. So there's a lesson in there somewhere. Now, I'm going to leave you with a couple of pieces of final advice when it comes to editing that a lot of people, for some reason, seem to miss. Like Ultra specifically is very bad at this particular one, which is when the crowd is jumping or moving or doing any sort of hand motion, match their motion to the beat. Like if the crowd is jumping off beat, it is so incredibly jarring to watch. And it's not just jarring to you because you notice, if you're a filmmaker or a videographer and you sort of understand that. It's one of those things where a general audience member who doesn't have the lingo to explain beat timing, they won't be able to tell you why that video feels wrong, but they will remember that it made them feel kind of and they skipped it. And that's your job to understand why that happened and to prevent that. And in order to prevent that, you should match the fucking movement of the crowd to the beat. It's not hard. A lot of people miss it. The other thing that I would recommend is do not be afraid to cut to black, especially before the drops, if you're working with the genre that has drops, because a cut to black can be extremely powerful for adding tension. Check this piece from ADE I did 2 years ago.
Raise your hands up, raise your hands up. What's up, Amsterdam?
And now check what happens if we put a black screen for that first drum hit.
Raise your hands up, raise your hands up. What's up, Amsterdam?
And now you can do even further and put some cool little...
Raise your hands up, raise your hands up. What's up, Amsterdam?
I think it's pretty good. Overall, the goal with editing a video like this is to keep things going, is to keep the momentum up. Normally what you would do is you would insert some of that city footage that you shot in the beginning. You would have your artist arriving at the venue, or if you're shooting for the event itself, you would have some artists mingling together, meeting with the fans, taking pictures with other artists. You know, you want to show the community, the connection, that sort of thing. And then as the song starts to build, you maybe get into the crowd, you show some of the venue, you show the stage, and then when the hype starts building, you have your primary action, whether it's a headliner or your artist, And then when it drops, you just want to keep things going. You want to cut from performance to crowd to special effects to performance to crowd to performance. Some cool moment. When it's a 4-bar transition in the middle of a drop, you want to maybe show something big and cool that's happening. But overall, the goal is to keep things moving and keep things interesting. You need to sort of like activate your zoomer brain. You need to make sure that things are never boring, that stuff keeps happening. Wipes, movements, effects. Remember that transition pack you downloaded in 2019 and never used? Now is its time to shine. Just keep things moving, keep things interesting. That is what people are looking for videos like this. And hopefully by the end you're done with all of it, you will have a video that your client is going to be happy with, and this is going to lead to you getting the next gig where you can do it all again and improve your skill to keep doing more of this and to keep going to bigger and bigger events and shooting for bigger and bigger artists. And when you become big and famous shooter for the top 10 artists on the planet, you will hopefully remember the humble YouTuber that has taught you the beginnings. And if you think you have learned something in my many minutes of rambling about flow and slap, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel, because Lord knows the channel needs help at this point. And I will see you in the next video, which is going to be about my editing app. Yes, I know I keep saying it every video, but I mean it for real this time. The app is almost done, the video is almost done. There's things to talk about. So stay tuned, hit subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Come